Isaiah was tall, broad-shouldered, his hair silver as weathered steel, his eyes glacial and steady. His voice carried the weight of revelation. When he spoke, men wept, and when he was angered, they trembled. His wife, Sarah, ruled more quietly but no less effectively. Her calm was sharper than any blade, her mind as precise as a ledger. Their son Joshua, a young man of powerful build and cold purpose, served as both their emissary and their enforcer. Together, they preached a doctrine they called divine simplicity, a faith that promised freedom from want, unity in purpose, and salvation through surrender. Families came by the dozens, drawn by promises of harmony and plenty. They gave up everything, money, tools, livestock, all placed into the community treasury. They trusted Isaiah's visions and Sarah's order. And for a time, New Eden thrived. Crops grew fat and green even when the neighboring farms withered. The workshops produced furniture of such fine craftsmanship that merchants traveled from far towns to buy them. At twilight, when the wind cooled and the prairie glowed amber, the community gathered in the great hall to hear the prophet speak. His words wrapped around them like silk, convincing them they had found heaven on earth. But beneath the hymns and harvests ran rules, like roots in dark soil. Letters to the outside world had to be approved by Elder Sarah. Visits from relatives were discouraged. Once a family gave their worldly goods to the treasury, leaving was no longer an option. The prophet warned of visions of ruin that came to those who tried to flee divine purpose. And behind closed doors, after the evening meal, Isaiah, Sarah, and Joshua met in the prophet's study. There, they planned which of their faithful would next be called to missionary work, an elegant euphemism for death. The first to die was Herman Miller. In February of 1872, when the prairie was locked in ice and moonlight, he dared to question the community's money. He wanted winter coats for his children, but was told such luxuries displeased God. That night, Isaiah invited him to pray in private. Herman entered the prophet's house, unaware he was walking into his own grave. Joshua waited behind him, hands like iron clamps around his throat. The struggle was brief. By morning, Isaiah told the community that Brother Miller had been taken by a heart attack during prayer. 3 days later, his wife and 4 children drank coffee laced with poison, served by Elder Sarah herself with a motherly smile. The next morning, their cabin was empty, their possessions gone, their garden replanted with flowers. The pattern was born. For 11 years, the Richardsons repeated it with mechanical precision. Families who questioned authority disappeared quietly, always under the story of missionary calling or divine tragedy. Some died by poison, others by fire, a few by what the prophet called heaven's own lightning. By 1876, for families were gone, their assets converted to over $50,000 hidden in a private vault beneath the prophet's house. By 1878, Patrick Brennan arrived, a man too observant for his own safety. He questioned the stories, the letters that never came from departed missionaries. For this, he was declared an agent of Satan. His repentance was staged before the congregation, his death arranged in his sleep. His wife and children followed soon after, buried among the lilies Sarah tended with sacred devotion. And yet, not all eyes remained blind. Young Emma Caldwell saw too much, letters hidden, belongings taken, questions answered with fear. When she tried to warn the world, Sarah found her first. Emma's last words were a lie meant to save others. "I wrote 3 letters. Everyone will know what you've done." The bluff worked. For the first time, the prophet's house trembled with fear. Their final victims, the Hoffmans, arrived with wealth and suspicion. When Klaus Hoffman resisted during his spiritual consultation, the noise shattered the night. Isaiah claimed afterward that a demon had been exorcised, but blood stains whispered otherwise. An 8-year-old boy named Timothy Weber, hiding in the barn, saw Joshua burying the bodies. He told his father what he had seen, and the first crack split the foundation of New Eden. Justice came not from heaven, but from a sister's persistence. Catherine McKenna, whose brother Patrick had vanished years before, traveled from St. Louis to Kansas with her husband, a federal inspector. She came unannounced and saw through the prophet's lies within hours. The handwriting on the letters he showed her wasn't Patrick's. The geography he described was wrong. When an 8-year-old boy whispered his truth to her about bodies buried beneath flowers, Catherine understood what New Eden really was. She left that night for Dodge City, carrying the child's words and enough evidence to awaken the law. The marshals arrived that September. They came armed not with rifles, but with warrants. The prophet greeted them with pious fury, but it was Sarah's garden that betrayed them. Beneath the lilies lay the remains of 47 souls, men, women, and children laid in family groups, their bones dusted with traces of poison. In the vault below the prophet's house, they found ledgers recording every stolen dollar, every cow, every ring and cradle sold in distant towns. The trial that followed shocked the nation. The prophet stood in the courthouse, unrepentant, claiming God had commanded him to cleanse the impure. His wife sat silent beside him, her eyes empty, while their son stared at the floor. The jury took less than 3 hours to decide. On a cold November morning in 1882, the Richardsons were led to 3 gallows in Dodge City. 1,000 people gathered to watch. The prophet spoke his final words as the noose settled around his neck. God will vindicate his servants. When the trapdoors fell, the wind over the prairie carried no sign of vindication, only the sound of creaking rope. In the years that followed, the land was left empty. The buildings rotted into the soil. Locals swore that the garden still bloomed brighter there than anywhere else, the flowers red as blood. Historians would later call it one of the most cunning enterprises of murder in the 19th century, a crime born not of madness, but of faith twisted into profit. Those who died at New Eden were not fools. They were dreamers, believers, men and women who wanted to build heaven on earth and instead found hell wearing a prophet's smile. Their story remains a warning whispered across the Kansas prairie, that evil rarely comes roaring out of darkness. More often, it comes preaching salvation.